Hello, Night Seekers, and welcome to Lacuna Noir. This is where forgotten stories and gentle voices meet, carrying you softly into peaceful sleep, wrapped in mystery. Before tonight's stories begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let me know. And a little note before we begin. You may notice a few brief ads in the first 10 minutes, but after that, the rest of the video is completely ad-free. Just you, the silence, and the stories. So settle in, get comfortable, and let the night carry you. If you're drawn to these quiet, shadowed nights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story when darkness calls. It's legal in Michigan now, so at least she has that going for her. I live in Ohio these days, but barely. I'm only about 20 minutes from where I grew up in Michigan, close enough that crossing the state line still doesn't feel like going anywhere. Where I grew up was about as rural as you could get without completely disappearing from civilization. We lived on a double dead-end dirt road. Yes, both ends were dead ends. A paved road crossed through the middle and led toward the nearest larger town, which was still around 45 minutes away. There were a few houses close to us, but outside that little cluster, it was fields, woods, dirt roads, and nothing. My school bus ride could take almost 2 hours because of all the stops scattered across those back roads. Rival schools used to call our school the Cornfield Ghetto, which honestly wasn't that inaccurate. The strangest thing that ever happened out there was during the summer of 2005. I was almost 15. At the time, we lived in a 3-bedroom trailer from 1969 that sat in the middle of the woods. No air conditioning, no cable, no satellite, almost no cell service. I did have a metallic pink Motorola flip phone, though. You know the one. Back when every conversation ended with, "Call me back after 9 when it's free." That trailer felt like an oven during summer. We had fans everywhere, but they mostly just pushed hot air around. At night, we would open windows and hope for a breeze. Bugs hit the screens constantly. You could hear frogs, crickets, and coyotes outside. I lived there with my older brother Dylan, his girlfriend Amy, my stepfather Roy, and my mother Tara. Dylan and Amy eventually got married. They stayed together for 16 years and had 4 kids. Roy was basically useless. Didn't work. Didn't contribute much. He's in prison now, which surprised absolutely nobody. Still, as low as the standard was in our house, I can say he never hit us. Then there was Tara, my mother. I need to explain Tara before any of this makes sense. One of my earliest memories sums her up pretty well. I was 3 years old, sitting on her lap in an old farmhouse we lived in before it eventually burned down. That fire gave me some of my first scars. While 3-year-old me sat there, Tara smoked a joint and got a homemade tattoo. The tattoo was Taz from Looney Tunes, with her nickname TNT underneath it. The tattoo gun had been made from random parts, and the needle was supposedly a guitar string. Except Tara has always pronounced guitar like guitar. That woman is maybe 5 feet tall on a generous day. Loud, mouthy, always dressed like she might be headed to either a rock concert or a gas station argument. She had absolutely no business raising children. But somehow there were 3 of us. Me, Dylan, and my younger sister, Hannah. Tara lost custody of Hannah to Hannah's father when she was 2. Unfortunately, that didn't mean Hannah got some beautiful, stable childhood afterward. None of us really did. All 3 of us made it to adulthood, which occasionally feels like an achievement by itself. We also carried a lot of destructive behavior with us. I spent years dealing with addiction myself before eventually getting clean and putting distance between me and most of my family. My childhood was, in the simplest possible terms, a trailer trash tragedy. And I don't say that for sympathy. It was just what it was. The important part of this story is that Tara and Roy grew marijuana. This was years before recreational weed was legal in Michigan. They weren't alone. Pretty much every family around our little dead-end road grew something. That may actually explain why so many antisocial. Suspicious people managed to live within walking distance of one another without constantly fighting. Everybody had something to hide. Nobody wanted police attention. There was an unspoken rule that you minded your own business. You didn't ask why someone carried black bags into the woods. You didn't ask why somebody had grow lights running in an outbuilding. You definitely didn't call the police unless someone was dying. During the summer of 2005, Tara became obsessed with a dream. At first, I barely listened. I was 14, almost 15, and angry at pretty much everyone. I had my own life. Smoking, drinking, getting high. Fighting, sneaking out. Tormenting teenage boys for entertainment. Normal, wholesome activities. Tara's dreams ranked pretty low on my list of concerns, but she kept talking about this one. At first, she said it happened once, then again maybe a week later, then every few days. By the end, she was having the same dream every night. For about 2 solid weeks, it became almost all she talked about. She told Roy. She told Dylan. She told Amy. She told me. She told neighbors. She told anyone unlucky enough to stand still around her for 5 minutes. The dream never changed much. It was nighttime. Our road was full of police, officers everywhere, flashlights moving through the cornfields, people searching the woods, police dogs, dozens of lights sweeping across the dark. In the dream, Tara never knew exactly what the officers were searching for. She just knew they were there. Because of our family's illegal side business, she became convinced the dream meant one thing. Drug raid. Not maybe. Not possibly. Absolutely, in Tara's mind, police were going to descend on our little rural neighborhood and find everybody's plants. She became so convinced that she started going door to door. We had 4 neighboring families close enough to matter. She warned all of them, you need to get your shit out. That was basically her message. And because this was rural Michigan, where superstition and paranoia often hold hands, people listened. Nobody laughed at her. Nobody said, Tara, maybe stop smoking before bed. They took it seriously. One by one, plants disappeared. Grow equipment moved. Anything incriminating got hauled somewhere else. People spent days cleaning up. By the end of those 2 weeks, there probably wasn't enough marijuana left on that road to get a mouse high. I thought it was ridiculous. My mother had weird dreams constantly. She had claimed to predict things before. Storms, people showing up unexpectedly. Breakups, deaths, most were vague enough that she could twist them afterward. If it rained after she dreamed about water, she had predicted the rain. If somebody called after she dreamed of them, she had predicted the call. You know the type. So I mostly ignored it. Then came that night. I don't remember the exact date. Summer break. Hot, miserable, probably late July or early August. I was awake long after everyone else. I've always been a night owl. The trailer was mostly dark. The only light came from the television in the living room. We didn't have cable, so whatever was playing came through the antenna. Probably some late-night rerun or infomercial. The screen washed the room in that blue-gray light old televisions used to make. Outside, everything was black. No streetlights. No porch lights from close neighbors unless you looked through trees. Just woods. The kind of darkness where, once you looked beyond the windows, you mostly saw your own reflection. Then, somebody hit the front door. Not knocked. Hit, bam, 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 I froze. It was a cop knock. I didn't know that from experience yet, but I knew it instinctively. Some knocks say, "Hey, neighbor." Others say, "Pizza." That knock said, "Open this door right now." I stayed where I was. I wasn't stupid enough to answer a door that late, especially in our house. Tara came flying down the hallway. She had apparently been asleep, hair everywhere, probably wearing some giant old t-shirt. She passed me without even looking. Opened the door. A police officer stood on the front step. The porch light hit his uniform. Behind him, I could see more lights moving farther out toward the road. My stomach tightened. For one horrible second, I thought, holy shit, she was right. The officer asked, "Are you Tara, Dylan's mother?" She said yes. Then, "Are John and Jake your nephews?" Again, yes. John and Jake were our cousins. They lived in Ohio, but came around fairly often. The officer asked, "Have you seen your son or nephews tonight?" Tara said Dylan was home. The officer asked her to physically check. That was when I started getting scared. Not weed scared anymore. Something was wrong. Tara disappeared down the hallway. A minute later, she came back with Dylan and Amy. Both looked half asleep. Amy's hair was messy. Dylan didn't even have a shirt on. The officer asked Dylan, "Have you seen John and Jake tonight?" Dylan rubbed his face. "Yeah." "When?" "A few hours ago." Then the officer asked, "What about Dean M.?" Amy became more awake instantly. Dean was her brother. Their family lived a few minutes down the dirt road, the farthest of our close neighbors. Dean and Dylan had been best friends for years before Dylan and Amy started dating. Dylan said, "Yeah, he was with us." The officer spoke into his radio, too quiet for me to catch. Then he asked, "The last time you saw John and Jake, Dean was with them?" Dylan nodded. Yeah, the officer lifted the radio again. This time, I heard him. Confirmed, keep looking for the M-boy's body. The word body changed the entire room. Tara gasped. Amy started crying immediately. Dylan just stared. The officer explained. John had been driving. Jake was with him. Police believe Dean had been in the vehicle too. They had crashed. The car left the road, hit a tree, and rolled several times. No other vehicle involved. They had been drinking. Nobody in our family was shocked by that part. John and Jake were alive, but both had been taken to the hospital unconscious and in critical condition. Police had found evidence suggesting there had been a third person in the vehicle. Because everyone believed Dean had been with them, they assumed Dean had been ejected during the crash. But they couldn't find him. That was why they were searching the area. Dylan and Amy started getting dressed to leave. The officer said someone could take them to the hospital or to Amy's family. Everything happened quickly. People crying. Questions. Doors opening. Phones ringing. I barely processed it. Then Dylan and Amy left with the officer. And I walked toward the front door. Tara was standing there. I came up behind her. I was shorter then, so I rose onto my toes and looked over her shoulder. And that was when I saw it. Her dream. Not something similar, not something close enough that you could force the connection afterward. Her exact dream. The road was alive with police. Flashlights sweeping through cornfields, white beams cutting between trees, officers walking shoulders apart in search patterns. Red and blue emergency lights reflected off leaves and dirt. Dogs pulling handlers into the brush. More police vehicles than I had ever seen in one place. Our isolated little road looked like a crime scene, and my mother stood completely still. I could feel something change in her. For weeks, she had been loudly announcing that police were coming for everyone's pot. She had acted almost proud of the prediction. Standing there, she realized she had gotten the meaning wrong. The police were coming. The dogs were coming. The flashlights were coming. The fields and woods really would be searched. But they weren't looking for marijuana. They were looking for a body. I whispered, Mom. She didn't answer. A dog barked somewhere down the road. Then another. The sound carried through the woods. We stood there for a while. I don't remember exactly how long. The whole thing felt unreal. Every time a flashlight moved through the trees, I remembered Tara describing it days earlier. Officers in the woods, lights everywhere, dogs searching. Exactly, I think that was the first time in my life I seriously wondered whether my mother might know something she wasn't supposed to know. They searched for hours. They didn't find Dean, because Dean wasn't dead. Eventually, John and Jake regained consciousness in the hospital. Once they could answer questions, police asked what happened to Dean. Apparently, the whole theory fell apart almost immediately. Dean had been with them earlier. That part was true. But before the crash, they had dropped him off at a girl's house. He had secretly gone inside. Her parents had absolutely no idea she had brought a boy into the house. While Dean was there doing whatever teenage Dean was doing, John and Jake decided to keep drinking and driving around. They weren't actually heading back to Ohio yet. They were joyriding. Eventually, they looped back toward our area. Then, they crashed. So police had spent hours searching fields and woods for a dead teenager who was actually several miles away, alive, hungover, and hidden in some girl's bedroom. I wish I could have seen the parents' faces when police knocked on that door. Apparently, their daughter had pulled off the secret boyfriend operation perfectly until a search party started looking for his corpse. Dean was very much alive. Embarrassed, probably. Hungover, definitely. But alive. John and Jake eventually recovered. John had been driving, and considering the circumstances, the consequences could have been much worse. He did get into some trouble. For a while afterward, he got sober and became religious. Like a lot of people in that family, his life kept taking different turns after that. But the part that always stuck with me wasn't the crash. It was Tara's dream. Because she had described that scene before it existed. Not once. Repeatedly, police, cornfields, woods, flashlights, dogs, night. She had everything right except the reason. And because she assumed it was a drug raid, she warned everyone. Every neighboring family removed their plants. All of them. No weed crops, no equipment. Nothing police might care about. Then, only a few weeks later, our dead-end road filled with law enforcement. Officers walked directly through areas where those plants had been. Dogs searched around properties. Police lights covered the road. People were asked questions. Officers were everywhere. Nobody got busted. Not one neighbor. If the crash had happened a few weeks earlier, the story probably would have been very different. Imagine police searching with dogs around 5 houses full of illegal marijuana grows. Even if the dogs weren't there for drugs, officers have eyes. They would have found something. Maybe a lot. Instead, Tara's incorrect interpretation of a dream caused everyone to hide the exact things that would have gotten them in trouble before police showed up for a completely unrelated reason. That is what bothers me. If she had dreamed the police are coming to search for a missing boy, that would be strange enough. But she didn't. She saw only images. Police, dogs, fields, woods, flashlights. Her brain filled in the reason. Drug bust. She was wrong. And yet acting on the wrong explanation still saved everyone from consequences when the real event occurred. That feels stranger to me than a simple prediction. Almost like she wasn't shown the future so she could understand it. She was shown just enough to make her do something. I didn't think about that part much when I was 15. I mostly thought the whole thing was funny once Dean turned up alive. For years afterward, whenever Tara started talking about one of her dreams, somebody would eventually mention that summer. She loved it. Of course she did. That story became proof of everything she wanted to believe about herself. If she dreamed somebody was going to call, she reminded you about the police. If she dreamed about a storm, the police story. If she had a bad feeling about someone, the police story. In Tara's version of events, she basically saved an entire neighborhood through psychic ability. She has claimed plenty of other premonitions since then. I don't believe most of them. Some were obvious coincidence. Some were things she probably remembered differently after the fact. Some were just Tara being Tara. As I got older, I stopped listening. Especially after putting distance between myself and that whole part of my life. There are only so many times you can hear someone insist that the universe sends them messages before you stop caring. For a long time, I treated that summer as the one weird exception. A strange coincidence. A dream that happened to line up with reality. Nothing more. Then, years later, I was talking to Amy about it. This was back when she and Dylan were still together. We were laughing about Dean almost becoming the most embarrassing missing person in Michigan. At some point, I said, the weirdest part is Mom dreaming about the cops before it happened. Amy stopped laughing. She looked at me. You remember that too? Of course. I thought maybe I remembered it wrong. What do you mean? She hesitated. Then told me something I had never known. Dean had been having dreams too. Not the same dream. For about a week before the crash, he kept dreaming about somebody knocking on a door. He would open it. Nobody would be there. Then he would hear dogs barking in the woods. He apparently told Amy about it twice. She ignored him because Dean was Dean. Drinking, smoking, always doing something. Then, the night of the crash, police knocked on the door of the girl's house and dragged him out of bed. I asked Amy, why didn't you ever tell anybody? She shrugged. Because it sounds stupid. Fair enough. I asked whether Dean remembered it. She said yes. He thought it was funny. That should have been the end. Except, she added one more thing. The girl whose house he had been hiding in had heard dogs outside before the police arrived. Not police dogs. Earlier. Hours earlier. She had looked out her bedroom window sometime around midnight because something was barking or howling near the tree line. She thought it was a stray dog. Then she saw lights moving between the trees. Flashlights. At least that was what she thought. She got scared and closed the curtain. Police didn't arrive at her house until much later. I remember asking, was someone already searching? Amy said she didn't know. Maybe neighbors. Maybe people with flashlights. Maybe nothing. Teenagers tell stories. Memory changes. Years pass. I left it alone. Then after I moved to Ohio, I drove near the old road one night. Not intentionally. I had been visiting somebody and took a route that brought me close. The area had changed. A few more houses. Better roads. More development. But our old dead end was still mostly the same. I hadn't been there in years. I slowed down at the turn. For maybe 30 seconds, I considered driving past our old property. I didn't. Too many memories. I kept going. Then I saw lights in a field. Several, moving slowly. My first thought was construction. Then flashlights. I pulled over. 3 people were walking through the edge of a cornfield. Couldn't see uniforms. Couldn't tell who they were. Farther back, a dog barked. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. It was stupid. Police search fields all the time. Farmers work at night. People hunt. Whatever, I drove away. The next morning, I called Dylan. We weren't particularly close anymore, but we still spoke occasionally. I asked if anything happened near the old road. He said, "Why?" "No reason." Then he told me a local teenager had gone missing overnight. Police had searched around several rural roads. They found him alive that morning. Drunk, he had fallen asleep behind a barn. I didn't tell Dylan what I had seen. I definitely didn't call Tara, because if Tara heard about that, I would have to listen to a 40-minute speech about inherited psychic gifts. No thanks. But a few weeks later, she called me. I almost didn't answer. Against my better judgment, I did. We talked awkwardly. Family stuff, people I no longer cared about. Then, just before hanging up, she said, "I had that dream again." My body went cold. "What dream?" She laughed, like I should know. "The cops." I didn't answer. She said, "Same road, same fields, dogs everywhere." I told her, "You know police searched out there recently, right?" Silence. "No," I explained the missing teenager. She immediately became excited. "See? No, you probably heard about it. From who?" "I don't know. You called me." I rubbed my forehead. "This is exactly why I don't talk to you about this stuff." Then she said something that stopped me. "This time, you were there." "What?" In the dream, my skin prickled. What was I doing? Standing in the road. With police? No, she became quieter. "Everybody was looking for you." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. "Okay, you were standing right there. If I'm standing there, why are they looking for me?" That's what I said. I could hear a cigarette lighter click on her end. She inhaled. "Then they walked right past you." I didn't like that. "Mom, dogs too. Stop, they didn't see you." I hung up. That was about a year ago. Nothing happened. Obviously, I'm alive. I'm fine. I never went missing. Tara probably dreamed something because our conversation brought back the old story. That is the reasonable explanation. And I prefer reasonable explanations. But there's one part I haven't been able to explain. A few months after that call, I visited Michigan. Different reason. Different area. On the drive home, I stopped at a gas station near where I grew up. It was late, maybe 1 in the morning. I went inside, bought coffee. When I came back outside, a county sheriff's vehicle was parked near my car. An officer stood beside it. I immediately assumed I had parked somewhere wrong. He asked my name. I told him. Then he stared at me, long enough to make me uncomfortable. "What?" He asked. "You okay?" "Yes. Where have you been?" I laughed. "What do you mean?" He looked toward another officer near the building. Then, "We've been looking for you." My stomach dropped. "No, you haven't." He asked for ID. I handed it over. He checked. Same name, same face. Then his expression changed. Confusion, he spoke into his radio. I couldn't understand the response. Finally, he said, "Sorry. Different person." "What different person?" He wouldn't explain. I kept asking. Eventually, he admitted they were searching for a woman reported missing earlier that night. Same first name as mine. Close age. Similar description. Apparently, dispatch had given them poor information. Coincidence, that's all. Then, a K9 unit pulled into the gas station. Dog in the back. The second that dog saw me, it lost its mind, barking, scratching at the window. The handler turned. The dog kept staring directly at me. I got into my car. Left, I didn't call Tara. I knew what she would say. Maybe she would be right, maybe not. The strangest thing about that summer in 2005 was never that my mother predicted the future exactly. She didn't. She got the most important part completely wrong. The police were not there for drugs. Dean was not dead. Nobody was raiding us. But the image happened. The police, the fields, the woods, the lights, the dogs. Every piece she saw arrived eventually, just arranged around a different explanation than the one she expected. And maybe that is why I still think about it. If premonitions are real, maybe they aren't messages. Maybe they're pictures, fragments, scenes without context, and people do the dangerous part themselves. We decide what they mean. Tara saw police and assumed drugs. That assumption accidentally saved several families from being caught. Years later, she saw police searching while I stood nearby unseen. I assumed it meant nothing. Maybe that assumption saved me too. I don't know. I don't ask. Tara still claims she has dreams about things before they happen. I still mostly ignore her. That is probably healthier for both of us. But every once in a while, if I'm driving at night through farmland and I see flashlights moving far out between rows of corn, I feel 14 again. I remember that hot trailer, the blue television light, that knock on the door. Tara running down the hallway. The officer saying, "Keep looking for the M-boy's body." Then me standing on my toes behind my mother and looking outside at the exact scene she had been describing for weeks. I remember the dogs, the lights, the officers disappearing into the trees. And sometimes I wonder about the one detail Tara kept repeating that I didn't mention earlier. Back in 2005, whenever she described the dream, she said the police were searching for something, but never seemed able to find it. She would always end the story the same way. They're looking everywhere, but what they want is standing right there. At the time, we thought she meant the marijuana. Then, we thought maybe she meant Dean. But the weed had been removed. Dean was miles away. Neither was standing there. I asked her once, years later, what she meant by that sentence. She didn't remember ever saying it. That isn't surprising. Tara forgets plenty. But I remember, because I heard it almost every night for 2 weeks. They're looking everywhere, but what they want is standing right there. And when she called me last year about having the dream again, she used almost the same words, except this time she knew what was standing there. Me, so if my mother calls again and tells me she dreamed about flashlights in the cornfields, I'm not going back to Michigan to investigate. She can call herself psychic. She can tell everyone she warned me. She can put another stupid prophecy in the same pile as all the others. I don't care, because once in my life, I watched one of her dreams come true. And I learned something from it. The part you think you understand beforehand is usually the part you got wrong. Hey guys, sorry in advance if this gets long, but I need to write everything down in the order it happened because I'm starting to question parts of it again. For context, I moved to Arkansas a little while ago for work. I'm 24, and I got a job as a caseworker at a prison outside a medium-sized city. The city itself is actually beautiful, much greener than where I grew up. The roads are lined with trees, there are little wooded areas everywhere, and even the shopping centers somehow look less ugly because there's so much vegetation around them. People are friendly, too, the kind of place where cashiers still call you honey and strangers hold doors open even if you're 20 feet away. I liked it. The only problem was housing. I didn't know anyone in the area yet, and I wasn't making enough money to get one of the nicer apartments closer to downtown, so I ended up renting a townhouse near the edge of the city. It wasn't terrible. 2 floors. Small living room. Kitchen. 2 bedrooms upstairs. Tiny backyard. The rent was manageable, but the walls were unbelievably thin. The kind of walls where you don't just hear a neighbor's television, you hear which show they're watching. You hear cabinets opening, footsteps, toilets flushing, arguments, phones vibrating against countertops. Everything I hated that. I'm a pretty private person, and after spending all day dealing with people at work, I wanted to come home to silence. Fortunately, when I first moved in, the unit next to mine was empty. Or that's what I thought. For the first few months, I never heard anything through that wall. Nothing. I got used to it. I could watch television as late as I wanted, sing badly while cooking, walk around upstairs without worrying that some stranger was listening to every step. It basically felt like I had both townhouses to myself. Then, a few weeks ago, someone moved in. At least that's what I believed happened. I remember the day clearly. I came home after a brutal shift. We had been dealing with a bunch of intake cases, and by the time I got off work, my brain felt like wet cardboard. When I pulled into the parking area, there was a moving truck parked in front of the townhouse next to mine. Big white box truck. Rear door open. I didn't see anyone actually carrying furniture. I honestly didn't think much of it. Someone moving in. Fine, there went my peace and quiet. I was too tired to care beyond that. I went inside, threw my bag down, heated some leftovers, turned on the television, and fell asleep on the couch before 10. The next morning was my day off. I wanted to sleep in. Instead, I woke up to furniture scraping against the floor next door. Heavy dragging noises. Thump, scrape, pause, scrape, then a man talking. His voice was muffled through the wall, but definitely male. He sounded like he was on the phone. I couldn't make out most of the conversation. Occasionally I heard a word. Yeah, okay, kitchen, something like that. I checked the time. 8:12. I remember thinking, great. He's one of those people who moves furniture at 8 in the morning. I tried covering my head with a pillow. Didn't help. Eventually I got up. Then I figured I might as well introduce myself. If I was going to hear this guy breathe for the next year, being friendly seemed smarter than starting off annoyed. I got dressed, brushed my teeth, went outside. That was when I noticed something strange. No car. The moving truck was gone. The driveway beside mine was empty. Maybe someone had dropped him off. Maybe the truck belonged to movers. Whatever, I walked to his front door and knocked. Nothing. I waited. Knocked again. Still nothing. That surprised me because less than 5 minutes earlier, I had heard furniture being moved. I leaned slightly toward the door. No footsteps. No talking. No music. Nothing. I knocked a third time. Hey, I'm next door. Just wanted to say welcome. Silence. I felt stupid standing there. Maybe he was showering. Maybe he heard me and didn't want to answer. Some people are like that. I went home. By then, the noises had stopped. The whole thing felt slightly odd, but not enough to worry about. Then Monday came. I worked a normal shift and got home sometime after 6. I opened my door, stepped inside, and tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter. Clink, immediately from next door. Clink. Someone had thrown keys onto their counter, too. I actually smiled. What are the odds? Maybe my neighbor had gotten home at basically the same time. I hadn't seen him outside, but maybe he came in through the back or parked somewhere else. I took off my shoes. Heard movement next door. Again, nothing strange by itself. I spent the evening eating Kraft mac and cheese because I was too tired to cook anything real. I FaceTimed my boyfriend. He lives a few hours away, so we do that most evenings when our schedules match. Nothing happened while we talked. At least, nothing I noticed. Around 10, I went upstairs. The moment I stepped onto my staircase, footsteps started next door. Same pace. Mine, creak, 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 his, creak, creak, creak. The townhouses were mirrored, so I assumed his stairs were directly behind mine. It was irritating. I remember thinking, Jesus, this guy walks like an elephant. I went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. A couple minutes later, through the wall, I heard water running, his shower. I laughed to myself. I even mentioned it to a coworker the next day. My neighbor is like an NPC, I said. Whatever I do, he does. She laughed. I laughed. That was before I realized how accurate the joke was. Over the next few evenings, I noticed it more. If I opened a kitchen cabinet, a cabinet opened next door. If I microwaved something, I heard movement in his kitchen. If I went upstairs, he went upstairs. If I came down, he came down. Sometimes there was a delay, 2 seconds, 3, rarely more than 5. Still, I tried telling myself there was a logical reason. The townhouses were probably built identically, maybe similar schedules. People get home from work, cook dinner, shower, sleep. It wasn't impossible. Then came the toilet. I'd gone upstairs to use the bathroom. Nothing interesting. I finished. Flushed. The pipes rattled. Then, through the wall, flush, his toilet. I stopped. For some reason, that was the first time it genuinely bothered me. Maybe because showering around the same time could be coincidence. Going upstairs could be coincidence. Cooking could be coincidence. But the exact moment, I stood there listening. Silence. I took 3 steps backward. 1, 2, 3. Next door. 1, 2, 3. My whole body went cold. I stared at the wall. No, I took 1 step. Next door, 1 step. I lifted my right foot and held it in the air. 1 second. 2, 3. Then I stomped. Bang from the other side. Bang. I froze. My heartbeat became so loud I could hear it in my ears. I tested again. 2 quick steps. Next door, 2 quick steps. I backed away from the wall. The sound backed away too. That was when panic hit. Not full screaming panic, the kind where your entire body becomes too light. I ran downstairs. For the first time, the footsteps did not follow me. Nothing came down the neighbor's stairs. Nothing moved on the other side. Silence. I grabbed my phone and called my boyfriend. He answered immediately. I explained everything. He listened for a minute, then said, "Okay, he's messing with you." "What?" "He can hear you too, right?" "Yes, so maybe he realized you could hear him and started copying you to be annoying. That's insane. Less insane than whatever you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything. You sound like you are." He had a point. Maybe the guy was weird. Maybe bored. Maybe the thin walls had turned into some stupid game for him. My boyfriend said, if he does it again, knock on the wall and tell him to stop. I didn't. But for the next several nights, everything next door went completely quiet. No footsteps, no shower, no cabinets. Nothing. I started wondering if maybe my boyfriend was right. The guy had heard me freak out and decided he had taken the joke too far. Fine, I could live with an immature neighbor. Then the noises returned. Gradually, a staircase here, a kitchen cabinet there. I ignored them. Until one night I dropped a wine glass. I had gotten home late. I poured myself a glass because work had been awful. When I was putting it in the sink, it slipped. Glass shattered all over the kitchen floor. Seriously, I was exhausted. I wanted bed. Instead, I had to pick up tiny pieces of glass while trying not to cut my feet. A few minutes later, crash. Glass breaking next door. I stopped cleaning. Stared at the shared wall. No, absolutely not. I walked to the counter. Tapped it 3 times with my knuckles. Tap, 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 nothing. I waited. 5 seconds. Then from next door, tap. Tap, tap. I called my boyfriend. It's happening again. What is? He's copying me. I put him on speaker. I'm going to show you. I opened a drawer, grabbed a metal spoon, tapped the stove 5 times. Clang, 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 silence, then from the other side, clang. Clang, 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 my entire body prickled. There. I said. You heard that. My boyfriend paused. Heard what? The banging. I heard you banging. After me. No, you seriously didn't hear that? Hear what? I held the phone closer to the wall. Listen, nothing, my boyfriend said. I don't hear anything. I thought maybe the phone speaker wasn't picking it up correctly, so I recorded a video. I pointed the camera toward the wall. Banged 3 times. Bang, 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 then the reply. Bang, 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 clear as anything. Finally, I sent the video to him. He watched. Okay? You heard it. Heard you knock. And then him. There's nothing after you. I became angry. Stop messing with me. I'm not. I replayed the video myself. My knocks. Then his. Clear, loud, 3 knocks. I held the phone closer to my ear. Definitely there. Wait, my boyfriend said on FaceTime. Have you ever actually seen this guy? What does that have to do with anything? Just answer. No, you never saw him? I saw the moving truck. That's not what I asked. I heard him moving in. You said you saw a moving truck. I stared at him through the screen. Okay. Did you see someone carrying furniture? I thought. No, did you see a car? No, did he answer when you knocked? No, so you've never actually seen anyone enter or leave that townhouse. I got irritated. That doesn't mean nobody lives there. I didn't say that. I've heard him every night. I'm just asking. You're acting like I hallucinated a whole person. I'm not. You are. I hung up. I regret that now because he was the first person to ask the right question. The next morning, I contacted the housing office. I tried keeping the complaint normal. I told the manager my neighbor was deliberately making noises through the shared wall and copying my routine. She asked for the unit number. I gave it. Pause. Which unit? I repeated it. Another pause. That one is vacant. I laughed nervously. No, it isn't. Yes, someone moved in a few weeks ago. No, I saw a moving truck. She checked again. That townhouse has been vacant for almost 2 years. My stomach tightened. Maybe your system hasn't updated. It would have. Can you check? I'm checking right now. Nothing. No tenant. No pending lease. No maintenance occupancy. Nothing, I told her about the moving truck. She said there were security cameras facing the parking area. I asked her to pull footage. That took a while because she had to get someone from security. I waited in the office. When they finally found the correct date, I stood behind them watching the monitor. There I was, my car entering the lot. And yes, the moving truck, big white box truck, parked near the neighboring unit. For 1 second, relief, see? Then the footage continued. I got out of my car, walked toward my townhouse. The moving truck pulled forward. It had never been parked in the neighbor's driveway. Perspective had made it look that way. It was on the access road behind the spaces. It turned, then drove out of the complex. I had been too tired to notice. No one got out. No furniture. Nothing. My mouth went dry. I asked the manager if it's empty, can we go inside? She hesitated. I insisted. Eventually, after making some calls and getting permission, she got a key. We walked next door together. The moment the door opened, I knew. Empty, not recently emptied. Long empty. No furniture. Dust along the baseboards. Empty living room. Empty kitchen. Nothing in cabinets. No food. No trash. We went upstairs. Empty bedrooms. Empty bathroom. I stood where his toilet should have been relative to mine. There was a toilet. Clean, dry, no toiletries. No shower curtain, no towel. Nothing. I looked at the tub. This was where I had heard water, night after night. I turned on the faucet. The pipe screamed at first from disuse. Brownish water spat out for several seconds. The manager looked at me. This hasn't been used in a while. I felt sick. We checked closets, under stairs, attic access. Everything, nobody, I asked if someone could secretly enter. She said locks had not been changed in years, but maintenance and management controlled the keys. Maybe an old tenant kept one? Possible, but where was the furniture? Where did the person go? Why did they only make sounds matching mine? I returned to my unit. For the first time, it didn't feel like home. I stood in my kitchen staring at the wall. I tapped once. Nothing. I waited. Tap. One reply. I backed away. My breathing changed. Then from next door, somebody took a breath. Same length. Same sound. I left immediately. I drove to my parents' house that night. They lived several hours away, but I didn't care. I told them I was stressed and thought I needed a few days. I didn't tell them everything at first. How do you tell your parents you moved away for your first professional job, and within months you're convinced an invisible neighbor is copying your bodily movements through an empty wall? I started thinking I needed medical help. Maybe I was hallucinating. Stress, lack of sleep. Something neurological. That possibility terrified me, but at least it was an explanation. I scheduled an appointment with a doctor. Basic tests came back normal. No drugs, no medication causing hallucinations. They asked about sleep, stress, anxiety. I said yes to all three. I started questioning everything. Maybe I created a neighbor because I expected one after seeing the truck. Maybe the townhouse had normal settling noises and my brain organized them around my actions. Pattern recognition. Confirmation bias. Then what about the recordings? Why could I hear the second set of knocks when my boyfriend couldn't? The doctor said expectation can influence perception. Basically, if I expected to hear it, maybe my brain was inserting it. I didn't like that answer, but I tried accepting it. I still had a lease, though. Breaking it would cost money I didn't really have. Fortunately, my friend V had just graduated from college and needed somewhere to stay near the city. When she heard I was temporarily moving home, she asked if she could take over my lease. I hesitated. A lot. I almost told her everything. Instead, I gave her a reduced version. The walls are thin. That's fine. The place freaked me out a little. Why? I thought I was hearing stuff next door. She laughed. Ghost? Don't joke. She saw my face. Sorry, I told her management confirmed the unit beside mine was vacant. She shrugged. Old buildings make noise. Exactly what everyone kept telling me. She needed housing. I needed out. The management approved the lease transfer. V moved in. For the first couple days, I barely contacted her because I didn't want to plant ideas in her head. If I said, hey, have you heard a man copying your routine through the wall? Then every pipe sound would become evidence. I wanted a clean test. If she heard nothing, great. Maybe it had been me. That possibility was humiliating, but far better than the alternative. A few nights after she moved in, I called her. How's the place? Good, no problems? Not really. Sleeping okay? Yeah, I felt relief. She sounded tired. She had spent the day unpacking. We talked about normal things, her job search, furniture, a guy she had started dating. She said the upstairs bedroom was bigger than she expected. Then she yawned. I'm probably going to bed. Yeah, sorry, I'll let you sleep. No, you're fine. I almost asked. Have you heard anything next door? I didn't. Then, knock. Knock, knock. I heard it through the phone. 3 slow knocks. V went silent. So did I. My skin went cold. What was that? I asked. She didn't answer. Another sound. From somewhere near her. A man's voice, muffled by a wall. Hello, new neighbor. V whispered, what the fuck? I sat upright. Leave, what? Get out of the house. Who is that? V, listen to me. Take your keys and leave. The man knocked again. 3 times. V said, is someone living next door? No, what do you mean no? Get out. I heard her moving. Footsteps. She went down the stairs. Then another set of footsteps came through the phone. Next door, matching her. Creak, 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 she stopped. The other footsteps stopped. Did you hear that? She whispered. Yes, for the first time, someone else heard it. Not on a recording, not through my description. Live, I said. Keep moving. She took another step. Next door, step. She started crying. What is this? I don't know. Why didn't you tell me? I thought it was me. You knew. I thought I was losing my mind. She moved faster. The footsteps followed. Then she ran. For a second, I heard both staircases at once, her feet hammering down, something next door keeping exactly the same rhythm. Then V reached the ground floor. I could hear her breathing. Keys, door lock. Go, I'm going. She opened the front door. At that exact moment, another door opened. Through the phone, next door. V stopped breathing. I said, don't look. Too late. She whispered, there's someone outside. My stomach dropped. What? In the other doorway. Can you see him? No, what do you mean? The door is open. Is anyone there? I don't know. I heard wind. Then V said, it's dark inside. Go to your car. She moved. Then the man spoke. Not through the wall anymore. Closer, leaving already? V screamed. The phone dropped. I heard movement. Car door. Keys, engine, then she picked the phone up. I'm driving. Good, oh my God. Don't go back. I'm not. She spent that night in a hotel. The next morning, I drove back to Arkansas. I felt horrible. Whatever this was, I had passed it to her. I met V at a diner. She looked exhausted. Angry, she barely let me sit before saying, tell me everything. I did. No edited version. The moving truck, the furniture, the bathroom, the copying, the empty unit. The recordings my boyfriend couldn't hear. She listened. Then said, there's something you need to know. What? I heard noises the first night. My stomach turned. Why didn't you say anything? I thought it was the neighbor. There is no neighbor. I didn't know that. I had told her the unit was vacant, but apparently she assumed someone had moved in afterward. She said the first night she heard someone unpacking, boxes sliding, cabinets, footsteps, exactly how I had first heard it. Second night, the person copied her brushing her teeth. Third night, followed her stairs. She hadn't considered it strange until the voice. Hello, new neighbor. I asked, did you ever see anyone? No car? No anything? She shook her head. Then, last night when I ran outside, the next door was open. I stared. Management locked it. I know. Did you look inside for maybe a second? What did you see? She rubbed both arms. The living room. Empty? No, my mouth went dry. What was in it? My stuff. I laughed once because my brain rejected that. What? Furniture. My couch. My boxes. The lamp I bought yesterday. She looked at me. It looked like my townhouse. Maybe you looked into your own unit. I was standing outside mine. V, I know what door I came out of. She continued. The other place looked exactly like mine. Same unpacked boxes. Same jacket over the chair. Then she said, but everything was backward. Mirrored. The townhouses already were mirrored physically, but this was more precise. Her personal things. Her clutter. Her layout. Copied, I thought about the footsteps. The toilet. Cabinets. Not a neighbor imitating us. Something next door reconstructing our side through sound. Learning the pattern. V said, there was someone standing upstairs. I felt cold. You said you couldn't see anyone. Not clearly. Who? A woman. Woman? She was standing at the top of the stairs. I asked, what did she look like? V swallowed. Like me. Neither of us spoke for a while. We went to management. The same manager was working. She looked annoyed when she saw me, then concerned when she saw V. We explained that the vacant unit had been open. She insisted impossible. They checked. Locked. She opened it while we stood behind her. Empty again. Dust. No furniture. No woman. Nothing. V walked upstairs. I followed. She stood in the bedroom. This is where she was. I noticed something on the floor. A box. Small cardboard moving box. That had not been there during my first inspection. I asked the manager. She frowned. I don't know. V went pale. What? That's mine. Her name was written on the side in marker. V, the box should have been next door, inside her occupied unit. We opened it. Kitchen utensils, a mug, 2 books, all hers. The manager finally stopped acting skeptical. We went next door, checked V's kitchen. The same box was there too, same handwriting, same contents. 2 copies. I picked up 1 mug, tiny chip on the rim. V checked the matching mug in her townhouse. Same chip. That was when we called police. They came. The explanation sounded ridiculous. Possible break-in, duplicate property, vacant unit. The officers inspected everything. No hidden access between units. No crawl space connection large enough for a person. No evidence anyone had lived next door. They took photos. One officer joked that someone was playing a very elaborate prank. Then he stepped upstairs. We heard him walking. Creak, 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 from the wall beside us. Creak. Creak, creak. He stopped. The other footsteps stopped. The officer looked at me. You hear that? I almost cried from relief. Yes, he took 1 step. Next door, a step. But we're in the next door unit, V whispered. I realized what she meant. We were standing inside the vacant townhouse. The copying sound was coming from my old unit. Her unit. Except nobody was inside it. We had all entered together. The officer frowned. Is someone over there? No, he went downstairs. We crossed back. Empty, the officer stood in V's living room. Then tapped the wall. 3 times, from the vacant unit, 3 taps. He stared. For once, nobody said hallucination. Nobody said stress. Then his radio crackled. Dispatch asked something. The officer raised it. Before he answered, a voice came through the shared wall. His voice, repeating the dispatch message. Exactly. The officer backed away. We all left. Management temporarily closed both units. I thought that would contain it. I thought maybe the thing belonged to the building. The next night, I was back at my parents' house. My bedroom from childhood. Hundreds of miles away. At 11:40, I brushed my teeth. From the wall beside the bathroom, brushing. Same rhythm. I stopped. It stopped. I moved the toothbrush slowly. Scrape, scrape, next door, scrape, scrape. My parents do not have neighbors sharing that wall. The other side is a linen closet. I opened it. Towels, sheets, nothing. That was when I understood. It hadn't stayed with the townhouse. It had learned me. I called V. No answer. Again, nothing. Then a text arrived. V, are you making noises? I called. She answered, whispering. She was staying with her sister. Apartment, different city, different building. She could hear someone in the unit next door copying her. Same thing? I asked. Yes. Did it say anything? No. Then 3 knocks came through her phone. I heard them. My own wall answered. 3 knocks. V stopped breathing. Another 3 on her side. 3 on mine. A connection, not 2 separate hauntings. Same thing, somehow, using both of us. Then the man's voice came from my wall. Hello, old neighbor, V screamed. From her side, a woman's voice answered, hello, new neighbor. My voice. I hung up. For the next several days, the copying evolved. It no longer waited for us to move first. Sometimes I would hear footsteps before I got up. Then when I stood, I found myself taking the exact number of steps I had just heard. 3 steps to the dresser, Pause, 2 to the door, like the order was reversing, not copying, predicting, or teaching. One morning, I heard a spoon hit a bowl 3 times through the kitchen wall. Clink, 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 I hadn't eaten yet. Then, I poured cereal. Without thinking, I tapped the spoon against the bowl 3 times. Exactly, I dropped it. At work, it got worse. I would hear my office chair roll before I moved. A cabinet opened before I reached for it. My own footsteps from the empty office next door. One afternoon, I stopped in the prison hallway because I heard keys jingle around the corner. My keys. Then I rounded it. Nobody. 5 seconds later. I automatically reached down and adjusted my key ring. Same sound. I started wondering whether it had ever copied me at all. Maybe from the first night I had been copying it. That thought nearly made me sick. V called me one evening. She sounded exhausted. I tested something. What? I sat completely still for an hour. Okay, it did nothing. That's good. Then I heard myself stand. I didn't like where this was going. She continued. I stayed sitting. What happened? Footsteps walked across the other room anyway. I swallowed. Then what? My legs moved. What? I stood up. She started crying. I didn't want to. The footsteps continued. She followed, step for step. Where did they take you? Bathroom. What happened? They stopped in front of the mirror. V went quiet. What did you see? My reflection. I waited. It moved first. The thing was no longer building a duplicate townhouse. It was building a duplicate routine. Then, a body. I asked if she could stay somewhere without shared walls. Hotel room. Detached house. Anything. She laughed bitterly. I tried sitting in my car. What happened? The passenger seat creaked when I moved. That night, my boyfriend drove to my parents' house. He had finally stopped thinking I was exaggerating. Mostly because I sent him a new recording. He still couldn't hear the second knock. But this time he saw something. In the video, each time the neighbors supposedly knocked, the camera image shifted slightly. Like the wall moved inward. Tiny, barely visible. He slowed it frame by frame. First knock. Wall moved. Second again, third again, not sound captured by the microphone. Movement, he stayed with me. I wanted an outside observer. Someone the thing hadn't learned. At midnight, I stood facing the bedroom wall. Boyfriend beside me. I tapped twice. Tap, tap, nothing. I looked at him. Then, tap. Tap, he didn't react. You heard it? No, but then his face changed. What? He pointed. The wall. A shadow had appeared on it. Human shape. Standing on the other side of a solid wall. No light source should have produced it. I raised my hand. The shadow raised its hand. A second later. Copy, my boyfriend whispered. Oh. Then the shadow turned its head toward him. That movement did not copy me. He backed away. The shadow lifted one hand. Tapped the wall 3 times. He heard that. I know because he jumped. You heard it. Yes, that was the first time he became part of it. I wish he hadn't. The shadow stretched. A second shape appeared beside it. Same height as my boyfriend. He grabbed my hand. We're leaving. We drove to a motel. Separate room from V. Nobody shared our wall. At 2:04 in the morning, someone showered in the bathroom next door. Except there was no room next door. We were at the end of the hall. Then our shower turned on by itself. My boyfriend switched it off. The water continued behind the wall. He opened the bathroom door. The mirror was fogged. Neither of us had used hot water. Written in the steam, hello, new neighbor. Below it, which side is yours? My boyfriend wanted police. I didn't. What could they do? Arrest a wall? We stayed awake until daylight. Then V stopped answering calls. For 6 hours. I panicked. I drove to her sister's apartment. Her sister said V was sleeping. She had finally passed out after being awake almost 2 days. I went to check. V lay in bed, breathing normally. But on the other side of the bedroom wall, I heard someone breathing in exact sync. In, out, in, out. I woke V. The second breathing stopped half a second after hers. She stared at me. It's getting closer. That was when V told me something she hadn't mentioned before. The first night she moved into my townhouse, before any obvious copying, she had dreamed about the vacant unit. In the dream, she walked through the wall, not through a doorway, directly through plaster. On the other side was an identical version of the townhouse. Everything mirrored. Someone lived there. A woman. V couldn't see her face. The woman said, "There has to be somebody on both sides." V woke. At the time, she ignored it. Now, we couldn't. I started researching the townhouse property. The complex had been built about 25 years ago. Nothing interesting. No murders. No missing tenants. Then I found an old planning document. The 2 units, mine and the vacant one, had originally been designed as one detached house. During construction, the developer changed the plan and divided it into 2 townhouses. One foundation, one structure, split down the middle. That didn't explain anything. Until I found the original owner, an older woman named Marjorie Vale. She bought both units when they were new. Not one. Both. She lived alone but kept the second townhouse empty. For 19 years. After she died, her family sold one unit and the property company took control of the other. The vacant one had remained empty unusually long. 2 years. I found Marjorie's obituary. Then a local message board post written by a former tenant. The post was short. I lived beside Miss Vale for 6 months. She made me promise never to knock on the shared wall. Said the house was built wrong and sometimes the other side answers. My hands started shaking. Another comment, she used to say she bought both halves because a house shouldn't have to invent its own neighbor. I read that sentence repeatedly. A house shouldn't have to invent its own neighbor. Maybe Marjorie understood. As long as she owned both, one person occupied the whole structure. After her death, different people moved into one side while the other stayed empty. Most probably never experienced anything. Then me, alone, young, listening, hyper aware of the wall. I saw a moving truck and expected a neighbor. Maybe expectation was enough. The structure had an empty half. I supplied the idea of someone living there. It began with generic sounds, furniture, male voice, keys, then my routine, then V's, then copies. The empty side was learning how to be occupied. But why did it follow us? Because once it built a neighbor, maybe we became the other side. Not physically. Relationally, you can't have a neighbor without 2 positions. It needed someone opposite itself. Wherever we went, it recreated the boundary. A wall, another room, a mirror, passenger seat, anything that could define next to. I told V. She listened quietly, then said, "So what happens when it finishes?" I didn't know. That night, we found out. We were all staying together at my parents' detached house. Me, V, my boyfriend. My parents had gone to visit relatives because I didn't want them involved. We sat in the living room, no shared neighboring structure. 4 exterior walls, open yard, nothing directly beside us. At 11:13, somebody opened a kitchen cabinet. We all heard it, from the kitchen. We could see the kitchen, nobody there. Then another cabinet opened. Physically, the door swung outward. Then another. Same order I usually opened them. V whispered, "It doesn't need the other room anymore." Footsteps climbed the stairs. Visible carpet, pressed down under invisible weight. 1 step. Next, my boyfriend said, "Don't follow." We stayed. Then, upstairs, my voice, come here. No, V's voice, guys? No, my boyfriend's voice, I found something. He grabbed my hand, his real hand. We stayed seated. Then my mother's voice from upstairs, honey? My mother was 40 miles away. The thing had learned people from us. Maybe memories, maybe recordings, maybe hearing conversations. We didn't answer. The footsteps came down. Slow, an indentation appeared on each stair. Invisible feet. At the bottom, they crossed the hallway, stopped directly opposite us. Nothing visible. Then the couch cushion beside V compressed. Someone sat. V started crying. The invisible person breathed, then spoke. Male voice. The neighbor. I think I'm ready. For what? My boyfriend asked before I could stop him. The cushion shifted. It turned toward him. Moving day. Every light in the house went out. We screamed. My phone flashlight came on. For maybe 3 seconds, the living room was no longer my parents' house. It was the townhouse. My old living room. But mirrored. Furniture duplicated. Boxes. Our belongings. On the couch opposite us sat 3 people. Me, V, my boyfriend. Copies, sitting exactly as we were, except they were smiling. Then lights returned. Parents' house. Empty cushion. We ran. We drove separately. We agreed not to stay together, because maybe being together gave it more references. That was 2 nights ago. Yesterday, the housing manager called me. She sounded strange. Did your friend move back in? No, well, somebody did. My stomach dropped. What? There's furniture in the vacant unit. I told her not to enter. She said maintenance already had. Inside, fully furnished. Exactly like my old townhouse. Not V's version. Mine, my couch. My old coffee table. Same framed print I had bought at Target. Same cheap rug. Even a stain in one corner from when I spilled red wine. But all mirrored. I asked, is anyone there? She was silent. Then, a woman. My throat closed. What does she look like? She says she's you. I almost dropped the phone. What? She has identification. No, your name. Your photo. No, she says, you moved into the wrong unit originally because of an administrative mistake. Don't listen to her. She knew my name. Of course she did. She knew about our first inspection. I started crying. Please leave. The manager lowered her voice. She asked why I keep calling you. What? She says you don't live here. I hung up. I called V. Her number was disconnected. Not voicemail. Disconnected, I messaged. Undelivered, social media, account gone. I called her sister. Who? My blood froze. V, I gave her full name. Silence, I don't know anyone by that name. You're her sister. No, I hung up. My boyfriend still remembers her. For now. He called me 10 minutes later. Something's wrong. What? He sounded frightened. I can remember V, but I can't picture her face. I tried. Neither could I. We remembered her laugh. College. Her apartment. Everything, no face. I opened photos. Every picture with V showed empty space. Or somebody turned away. The thing wasn't simply moving into an empty townhouse. It was deciding who occupied which side. Maybe there could only be one person in each role. Original neighbor. When V took my lease, she became me. That gave the thing another version to compare. Now V is disappearing. My boyfriend asked, are you next? I think so. This morning, my employer called. They asked why I hadn't shown up. I said I had approved leave. No record. Then they asked, who is this? I gave my name. Pause, that employee is already here. I drove past the prison. I know I shouldn't have. I needed to see. My car stayed across the road. At 5:03, shift change. Employees walked out. Then me. My copy. Same work clothes. Same badge. She laughed with one of my coworkers. Got into a car identical to mine. Drove away. No one reacted. I followed. She drove to the townhouse. Not my old unit. The vacant one. She parked. Went inside. A few seconds later, lights came on in my original townhouse, too. Two occupied halves. Balanced, I stayed in my car. Then my phone buzzed. Text from my own number, finally. Another, we both have a neighbor now. I looked toward the upstairs windows. One version of me stood in the left townhouse, one in the right, both looking down at me. Then a third set of footsteps sounded from the back seat of my car. I didn't turn. A man's voice whispered directly behind me. Looks like you're the vacant one. I drove. I'm still driving. I don't know where to go. My boyfriend told me to come to him, but I'm afraid that if I do, I'll bring this thing and it will learn him completely. I'm already losing proof of myself. My apartment lease records now list someone else. My work system says I'm clocked in while I'm hundreds of miles away. My parents answered when I called, but Mom said, "You sound different." I asked, different from what? She couldn't answer. Then she said, "Did you change your number?" No. Same number I've had for years. I think the world is starting to decide the version in the townhouse is the real one. Maybe reality likes occupancy. It prefers the person who is where they're expected to be. Employee at work. Tenant at home. Daughter who calls normally. Not a frightened woman driving through Arkansas talking about an impossible neighbor. I've started recording details. My name. Age 24. Prison caseworker. Boyfriend a few hours away. Parents' names. Favorite food. Childhood memories. Anything, but when I replay recordings, certain words disappear. My name fades first. Just silence where it should be. The copying has changed too. It used to follow, then predict. Now it proceeds by hours. This afternoon, I heard 3 knocks from inside my trunk. I didn't open it. Later, at a gas station, someone knocked 3 times on the restroom stall. When I came out, nobody than a man's voice from the next stall. "Hello, new neighbor." I ran. An hour ago, I checked into a roadside motel, 1-story building. I specifically asked for a room with nobody on either side. The clerk thought I was weird, but agreed. Room 14. Rooms 13 and 15 empty. I checked. Curtains open. Dark, empty. I sat on the bed. For almost 20 minutes, silence, then I heard someone set keys on a table in room 15. Clink, I stayed still. A television turned on. Same show playing on mine. I turned mine off. Next door went off. I didn't move. Then footsteps. Toward the shared wall. Stopped. 3 knocks. I refused to answer. Then, from room 13, 3 knocks. Both sides now. I stood in the center of the room. Another knock left. Another right. Alternating like 2 people communicating through me. Then V's voice from room 13. "Please," I almost answered. My boyfriend's voice from room 15, "Don't." I covered my ears. V, it erased me. Boyfriend, that isn't V. V started crying. "I'm still here." I whispered, "V?" The moment I said her name, both rooms went silent. Then my phone filled with notifications. Photos reappearing. V's contact returned. Social account. Her face. I remembered. I called. She answered. Screaming, "Why did you say my name?" "What?" It found me again. The line filled with knocking. 3, 3, 3, then disconnected. I think names are addresses. Recognition gives it somewhere to build. I brought V back, but I also gave the thing her shape again. I don't know if that saved her or doomed her. There are footsteps now on both sides of my motel room, moving exactly together. My left wall creaks. Right wall answers. The room feels narrower than when I entered. I measured with my steps earlier, about 12 feet wide. Now, maybe 11. The walls are moving inward, or something is building rooms on both sides and taking mine to make space. My phone just received a video from V. She is standing in a room identical to this motel room. She is crying. Behind her are 2 doors. She says, "I think we're in the middle now." Then the camera turns. There's a man behind her. I've never seen him before, at first. Then I recognize the voice. The first neighbor, the man I heard after the moving truck. He smiles, says thanks for keeping the place warm. Video ends. I finally understand something. I never created him, at least not completely. There may have been someone before me, another tenant, another person living in my unit who heard noises from the vacant side. Maybe they disappeared. Maybe the 2-year vacancy wasn't because nobody wanted the townhouse. Maybe every time one half becomes empty, the other half starts copying whoever remains until it can move someone across. Then a new tenant arrives. Cycle restarts. Marjorie bought both halves because she understood that. Keep both occupied by one known person. No vacancy. No need for the structure to create balance. After she died, the process started again. Maybe that male voice belonged to the last tenant. Maybe he was no longer human by the time I heard him. Just the shape the empty side remembered. Now it remembers me. V, my boyfriend. Anyone who listens. Anyone who becomes a neighbor to the story. That thought is why I almost didn't post this. Because every time I told someone, they eventually heard something. My boyfriend didn't hear the knocks at first. Then he did. Police didn't understand until they stood near the wall. V didn't know until I let her move in. Attention might be enough. But I need somebody to know what happened in case I disappear completely. So if you're reading this and tonight you hear something through a wall that shouldn't have anyone behind it, don't test it. That was my biggest mistake. Don't knock a pattern. Don't take 3 steps. Don't stomp and wait for an answer. Every test teaches it. Sound becomes routine. Routine becomes prediction. Prediction becomes memory. Memory becomes you. The room just shook. Both walls moved inward another inch. The television turned on by itself. Security camera footage. Not a show. My motel hallway. Room 14. My door. Someone standing outside. Me, she knocks 3 times. From inside my room, 3 knocks answer. Not me. The copy outside smiles. Then, room 13 opens. V steps out, room 15 opens. My boyfriend. Except I'm currently on the phone with my boyfriend. He's 2 hours away. I told him what I see. He checked his own room, then whispered, "There's someone standing outside my door." I said, "Don't look. Too late." He said, "It's you. The 3 figures on my television are moving now. Me, V, my boyfriend. They stand in front of my door. Then all 3 turn toward the security camera. The copy of me says, someone has to live here. V says, someone has to live there. My boyfriend says, and someone has to stay between. The television shuts off. The wall behind the bed knocks once. Not left. Not right. Behind, there is no room behind me. Only the exterior parking lot. Another knock. Closer than a woman's voice. Mine, hello, new neighbor. I am not answering. I have the motel door open. I can leave. But the hallway outside doesn't look right anymore. There are doors on both sides. Hundreds. Same beige motel doors repeating farther than the building could possibly extend. Each has a number. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Over and over. From behind every 14, I can hear someone breathing. From behind every 13, V is crying. From every 15, my boyfriend is telling me not to listen. And somewhere far down the hall, a man is knocking 3 times, waiting for someone to answer. I think I finally know why the first words were always the same. Not a threat. An introduction. A rule. A position. Hello, new neighbor. Because once you answer, you admit there is someone on the other side. And once there is an other side, the house can start deciding which one of you belongs where. Sorry to pause for just a moment. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you're enjoying the calm so far. If you'd like more nights like this, true stories, gentle rain, no interruptions, please subscribe to Lacuna Noir. It really helps me keep creating these peaceful experiences for you. And tap the bell so you're here every time a new story arrives in the dark. Now, back to the story. Around 8:30, just after Annie put our daughters to bed, she came downstairs and suggested we take acid. It wasn't completely unexpected. We had been talking for months about having some kind of shared psychedelic experience together. The idea started after one of Annie's coworkers, Bora, went on a weekend wellness retreat and drank peyote tea somewhere in the desert. Bora had been deeply depressed before the trip. According to Annie, she spent most Monday mornings staring blankly at spreadsheets and talking about quitting her job. Then she came back from that retreat smiling. Not fake smiling either. Apparently, she spent the entire first day telling everyone how beautiful Excel was because every little cell had a purpose. I had laughed when Annie told me. Then, over the next few months, she started bringing up the idea more seriously. We used to do weird things, she said once. Remember? I remembered. Before marriage, mortgages, daycare, parent-teacher conferences, and the endless responsibility of keeping tiny people alive, Annie and I had been a lot more adventurous. Festivals, camping trips, drugs taken from people we probably shouldn't have trusted, last-minute road trips, sleeping in cars, dancing until sunrise. Then Shiloh was born. Then everything changed. Not badly, just completely. Your life shrinks around children in a strange way. The world gets smaller, but also more important. Suddenly, 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep feels like luxury. Going to the grocery store alone feels almost like a vacation. For years, Annie and I barely drank beyond splitting a bottle of wine after the girls went down. Sometimes we ate gummies. That was about it. Maya, our youngest, had only stopped waking us several times a night a couple years earlier. By then, she was 6. Shiloh was 10. They slept deeply now. They could get themselves water. They knew how to use the bathroom without falling in. Our responsibilities had finally loosened just enough that doing something stupid almost felt possible again. So when Annie came downstairs that night and leaned against the kitchen counter with that particular smile, I knew something was happening. "Do you have it?" I asked. She reached to the highest shelf of the pantry. That was where we kept candy we didn't want the kids finding. She pulled down a little metal tin. Inside were CBD gummies, some vitamins, and a stack of tiny square papers. Each had a Pokemon printed on it. She held up 2. "Charizard for you." "What's yours?" She checked. "Gengar, appropriate," she smiled. The girls were swimming all day. They're exhausted. They'll sleep until at least 8. That's optimistic. Even if they wake at 6, we'll be fine. Define fine. Functional enough not to accidentally sell them. She came around the counter and sat beside me on the couch. Her hand slid down my arm. That helped her argument. "Come on," she said. "Aren't you bored?" I looked at her. She looked excited in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not mother excited. Not practical adult excited. Annie excited. The woman I had fallen in love with. "I know I am," she added. She held out the Charizard. I took it, placed it on my tongue. "Well then," I said, "let's make it fun like the old days." She took hers too. Within half an hour, we had transformed the house. Lights off, candles everywhere. Too many candles, in hindsight. Different smells in every room. Beach sandalwood in the living room. Citrus mint in the kitchen. Redwood vanilla near the stairs. Candy cane in the hallway. Hot cocoa in the dining room. Even before the acid started working, Walking from room to room created strange little emotional shifts. Sandalwood reminded me of hiking with my father. Vanilla reminded me of a bakery my grandmother used to take me to. Peppermint threw me into some Christmas morning from childhood. Annie walked around, sniffing each room and laughing. It's like memory stations, she said. We put snacks on the coffee table. Popcorn, Hershey's Kisses, grapes. Annie automatically sliced the grapes in half. I watched her do it. You know, they're not toddlers anymore. She looked at the knife. Oh, then she laughed. My brain is permanently damaged. Parenthood, exactly, we put on jazz. Something soft with brushed drums and upright bass. I stretched out on the couch. Within minutes, the fabric seemed to become deeper beneath me. I sank, not physically, but my body stopped having clean edges. Oh shit, I said. Annie looked over. It's happening? I think the couch ate half my back. She sat beside me. I turned until my head rested in her lap. She ran her fingers through my hair. Every movement of her hand sent strange little waves down my spine. Then she started laughing. What? Remember when we thought Maya had lice? I groaned. You spent like 2 hours checking her. 1 hour. 2 maybe, and she didn't even have lice. Not one nit. See any on me? She leaned down dramatically. Just dandruff. Cruel. I reached for popcorn. The coffee table seemed approximately 30 feet away. My arm extended. My fingers felt soft and boneless. I gave up. Annie watched me, then asked, "Are you happy?" The question landed differently than I expected. I thought about it. Yeah, she waited. I mean, it's hard. But yes, hard isn't the same as bad. No, she stroked my forehead. We're lucky. We are. There was a pause. Then she said, "Do you ever think about Ruthie?" Everything changed. Not the room. Me, my whole body tightened. Annie, what? Don't. I'm just asking. Not tonight. Her hand stopped moving. Why? Because we're on acid. So? So maybe don't open the darkest door in our marriage while both of us are hallucinating. She looked down at me. I don't think she's a dark door. I sat up. A year and a half after Shiloh was born, Annie got pregnant again. Everything was normal at first. Healthy scans. Healthy heartbeat. We started talking about names. Paint colors. Whether 2 children sharing a room would work. At 5 months, an anatomy ultrasound found something missing. A crucial structure in the baby's brain had never formed. I remember the doctor staring at the screen too long, then excusing herself, then coming back with another doctor. That was how we knew before anyone said anything. What followed was weeks of specialist appointments and conversations nobody should have to have. Probabilities, quality of life, survival, procedures, words that were medical and clean but described things that felt anything but clean. Eventually, we lost the baby. Ruthie, we had already named her. Afterward, Annie collapsed. Not dramatically. She simply stopped functioning. For weeks, she barely left bed. Sometimes she forgot the pregnancy was over. Once I found her standing in the nursery we had started preparing, rubbing her stomach and whispering to someone who wasn't there. I had Shiloh to care for, a job, a wife who seemed to have fallen through some trapdoor inside herself. For 6 months, our marriage became survival. Then she slowly came back. A year later, she became pregnant with Maya. That terrified both of us. But Maya was healthy. When she was born, something in Annie lifted. Not completely. Grief never disappears completely. But Ruthie stopped being the center of every room. Until that night. I know what happened, Annie said softly. I'm not trying to pretend it didn't. Good, I just think maybe we could see it differently. How? She's part of our story. She is. Not just the bad part. I looked at her. What good part is there? Annie's face tightened. That's not what I mean. Something thumped upstairs. We both froze. I looked toward the ceiling, another smaller sound. I sighed. If Maya's awake, I am absolutely not qualified for this. Annie smiled. Your dad. Go, Dad. Excellent. I stood carefully. The floor felt less solid than usual. I climbed the stairs with one hand on the banister. The wood grain seemed to grow fur. The carpet patterns moved in slow spirals beneath my feet. I told myself, you took a drug. The carpet isn't alive. At the top, I walked toward the girl's bedroom. Door cracked open. I pushed it slowly. Inside, darkness, moonlight through curtains. Two shapes on the queen mattress. Shiloh and Maya had started sharing the bed by choice months earlier. They said it made the room feel less scary. Their bodies rose and fell almost perfectly together. I stood there, smiling. Then noticed something near Maya's feet. A small lump beneath the blanket. Maybe a few inches tall. It moved. I stopped breathing. Mouse? Cat? We didn't own a cat. I stepped closer. The lump shifted. Then Maya rolled. It disappeared. Her foot. Of course. I laughed quietly at myself. I checked the window. Closed, closet closed, room normal. A feeling of huge peace settled over me. My children were safe. My wife was downstairs. Everything was okay. I returned. I managed to eat one piece of popcorn. It dissolved against my tongue like warm foam. Annie was staring toward the back window. It's clear tonight. Apparently, let's look at the stars. She stood. I followed because at that moment following Annie seemed like the most natural thing in the world. We walked outside. Cool air against my skin. The lawn seemed nearly black except where moonlight touched it. Annie walked several steps into the grass, dropped to her knees, then rolled onto her back. I lay beside her. We lived outside, the brightest part of the city. On clear nights, stars were visible. That night, they looked impossible. Thousands, more light than darkness. The whole sky seemed packed with points. Annie whispered, Ruthie would be 8 today. I turned toward her. What? If she came on her due date. August 15th. I had forgotten. That was the first year I had genuinely forgotten. Usually the date arrived like a storm front. This year it hadn't. I had considered that healing. Please don't, I said. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I know. I just want you to think about it. I don't want to. Silence, then she said. The squares were different. What? The acid. I looked at her. What do you mean? Different batches. Different intentions. That sounds like marketing. Probably. She laughed. Your Charizard was called Open Heart. I stared. Seriously? Mine was manifest. Of course it was. She lifted both hands toward the sky. Open Heart is supposed to make you receptive. To what? Everything? And manifest? Empowerment, she flexed her fingers. I feel strong. Good for you. No, really, she grabbed my hand. Hard, too hard. Pain shot through my fingers. Annie, she squeezed harder. I tried pulling away. Couldn't. That frightened me. I outweighed her by probably 80 pounds. I exercised regularly. She barely went to Pilates. Yet her grip felt like steel. Let go. She did. Immediately, I rubbed my fingers. Jesus, she smiled. I feel like I could grab the grass and pull the planet apart at the seam. That's a healthy thought. She reached toward the stars, moved her fingers back and forth. I can make them disappear. Her hand blocked patches of sky, then revealed them again. See? I followed her hand. That was when I noticed the girl's window. Upstairs, bottom pane open, curtains moving. Was that open earlier? What? The window. Annie looked. It's hot. It was closed, are you sure? Yes, she shrugged. Maybe one of them opened it. I stood. I'm checking. Annie remained in the grass. Inside, the house felt warmer, much warmer. The walls seemed to breathe. Floorboards bent softly beneath me like wheat. I climbed the stairs. From the hallway, I heard breathing. Loud. The girls. Two sleeping children breathing. Except as I approached, the rhythm sounded fuller, like more lungs. I reached the door, looked inside. Three shapes. My mind rejected it. 1, 2, 3. I closed my eyes. Opened 3. Blood rushed into my head. My gums felt swollen. My teeth suddenly seemed loose. I had never felt fear like that. Not before. The third shape lay between my daughters. Small, child-sized. Who was in their bed? A burglar's child? Some animal? A doll? A stranger? My brain produced possibilities faster than I could process them. I stepped forward. Moonlight touched their faces. Maya, Shiloh, and another girl. The third child looked maybe 8. Dark hair. Shiloh's nose. Maya's mouth. Somehow, Annie's chin. My eyes studied her. Then recognition arrived. Not gradual. Complete Ruthie, of course. My middle daughter. How could I not recognize her? A whole landscape of memory unfolded instantly. Ruthie at 4, putting toothpaste in Shiloh's shoe. Ruthie at 6, refusing to eat pancakes unless they were cut into triangles. Ruthie laughing so hard milk came out her nose. Ruthie hiding plastic bugs in my work shoes. Ruthie asleep on my chest during a thunderstorm. Years of memories. Real, detailed, warm. I almost laughed at myself. Why had I been afraid? Then the girl opened her eyes. Dad? She sat up, wiggled free from her sisters, walked toward me. Her first steps were awkward. Uncoordinated, like someone learning legs. I think my legs are asleep. Something deep inside me screamed. I stepped backward. She looked hurt. What? Nothing. She came closer, wrapped both arms around my waist. Her grip was crushing. Again, impossible strength. My back protested. I looked down at her hair. Hadn't she been missing part of her brain? No, that thought made no sense. Here she was, whole, healthy, my daughter. She tightened her arms. How long was I asleep? I swallowed. Not long. Her face pressed into my stomach. I imagined tapping her skull, listening for emptiness. The thought horrified me. What kind of father thinks that? I stroked her hair. Back to bed. She looked up. For a second, her pupils seemed enormous. Then normal. Okay, Daddy, she climbed back between the other girls. All 3 settled. All 3 breathing together. I left. Halfway downstairs, relief filled me. By the kitchen, I was laughing. How ridiculous. I had been frightened of Ruthie. Sweet Ruthie. I grabbed several grapes from the bowl. Then memory struck me. The ultrasound. The doctor. The hospital. Annie sobbing. The tiny urn we never displayed. There was no 8-year-old Ruthie. I stopped chewing. My stomach dropped. But instantly, another set of memories pushed back. Birthday parties. School photos. Dentist appointments. Ruthie breaking her wrist at 7 after falling from the monkey bars. Which memories were real? Both felt real. I walked outside. Annie lay where I had left her. Her hand moved across the sky. How are they? She asked. Shiloh's fine. Pa's Maya too. And? She forced me to say it. Ruthie seemed okay. Good. How did she look? Like us. Good, Annie. She kept moving her fingers. What? Has she always been there? Yes, no. She turned her head. You're having trouble. I'm freaking out. Don't. There were only 2 girls. 3. We lost Ruthie. You're remembering the wrong story. What does that mean? She sat up. Even in darkness, I could see her smiling. You're doing fine. What did you do? Her smile vanished. I told you. Manifest. That's not an answer. I can't do it alone. The sentence sobered me more than anything else. What did you do? She looked toward the upstairs window. I wanted her back. My skin went cold. You wanted. I've always wanted. That doesn't create a child. Maybe not by itself. I stared. What did Bora give you? Nothing. Where did you get the acid? She didn't answer. Annie, the forum. What forum? She sighed. People who've done this before. Done what? Corrected things. That word. Corrected. You said this was acid. It is. Then what? She looked at me. Open heart lets you receive the new version. I backed away. And manifest lets me make it. The sky seemed to tilt. No, you already saw her. I hallucinated her. You touched her. We're high. She hugged you. Hallucinations can feel real. She remembers you. Because my brain made memories. Exactly, Annie stood. Memory is reality more than you think. I shook my head. No, you remember her now. I remember two things. For now. The words hit me. For now? Annie came closer. You keep choosing the wrong one. The wrong what? Story. I looked upstairs. 3 silhouettes appeared briefly at the window. Then, curtains moved. What happens when the drugs wear off? She smiled sadly. Hopefully nothing. Hopefully? If it holds, we wake up tomorrow with 3 daughters. And if it doesn't? She didn't answer. I grabbed her shoulders. What happens? She looked frightened now. Not powerful. Not mystical. My wife. I don't know. You gave us something without knowing? I knew enough. What did those people tell you? That grief leaves gaps. What? That a missing person creates an empty structure in a family. Habits, expectations, love, memories that never got used. I stared. They said manifest can fill it. With what? With what should have been there. No, look at her. I did. Did she look wrong? Yes. How? I couldn't answer. She didn't. Not exactly. She looked like our child. Because she was built from us. My mind. Annie's. Shiloh. Maya. All the traits we would expect. That's not Ruthie. Annie's eyes filled. Maybe it can be. No, what makes Ruthie Ruthie? A body? Memories? Us remembering her? She died. She never got to become anyone. That doesn't mean you can invent her. I'm not inventing. What are you doing? Annie whispered, making room. A sound upstairs. Footsteps, one child. Slow. Then another. Then another. 3 sets. They stopped at the top of the stairs. Annie looked toward the house. Don't be scared. I was. A little voice called, Mom? Ruthie. Annie's entire face softened. I'm here. I grabbed her wrist. Don't answer. She's our daughter. She's something. Stop. Ruthie appeared in the doorway, backlit by candlelight. She stood at the threshold. Her body looked normal, but something was wrong with the way she waited. Children don't stand completely still. They sway. Scratch, blink. Ruthie did none of those things. Mom? Annie stepped toward her. I held on. Annie, she pulled free. Ruthie smiled. Can I come outside? Annie whispered, yes. The girl walked toward us. Her steps improved with every one. By the time she crossed the lawn, she walked naturally. She hugged Annie. Annie collapsed to her knees. Sobbing, oh baby, Ruthie held her. I stood several feet away. Then Ruthie looked at me. Dad? I said nothing. Her expression changed slightly. Not sadness. Confusion, Dad? Annie looked back. Say something. I couldn't. Ruthie approached. You're still scared. I stared. How do you know? Mom said you might be. You talked about me? Annie shook her head. No, Ruthie smiled. I remember. What? You being scared at the hospital. My legs weakened. Annie looked confused. Ruthie? The girl continued. You stood near the window. I had. While Annie sat on the hospital bed after the final procedure, I stood facing the window because I couldn't bear looking at her. Nobody knew that detail. Nobody, I remember you thinking you wanted to leave. I couldn't breathe. I had thought that too, for maybe half a second. I had wanted to walk out and never come back. The shame had stayed with me for years. How do you know that? Ruthie tilted her head. I was there. No, I was always there. Annie whispered, That's enough. Ruthie ignored her. You wanted me gone. No, you did. I was scared. You wished it would be over. Annie stood. Stop. Ruthie turned toward her, then smiled. Mom wished it too. Annie went pale. That was the moment I understood the thing wasn't simply made from the beautiful, unused memories. It had access to everything. Grief, shame, private thoughts, things never spoken. The empty space hadn't been filled with a child. Something had entered through the absence and used our memories to give itself shape. Ruthie looked toward the house. Shiloh was awake. We heard a scream. I ran. Upstairs, Shiloh was sitting against the headboard, Maya crying beside her. What's wrong? Shiloh pointed at the middle of the bed. Empty now. She was there. Who? Shiloh started crying harder. The other girl. I turned. Annie and Ruthie stood in the doorway. Shiloh looked directly at Ruthie. That, Annie said, Shiloh, that's your sister. No. Ruthie stared. Shiloh crawled backward. We only have Maya. Annie's face collapsed. That's not true. Yes, it is. Ruthie looked from Annie to Shiloh, then to Maya. Maya wiped her eyes. Who is she? Something changed in Ruthie's face. Tiny, like a bad frame in a video. Her smile stretched, then corrected. Annie whispered, No. Ruthie said, They don't remember yet. Yet, I grabbed both girls. Downstairs, Annie blocked the door. Wait, move. You're making them scared. They should be. Ruthie looked at me. Open heart is failing. Annie stared at her. You're not supposed to know that. Ruthie smiled. Mom knows. Annie started crying. No, you brought me. I brought Ruthie. I am Ruthie. Then the child turned to Shiloh. Remember my birthday. Shiloh flinched. I don't. Ruthie stepped closer. Remember, Shiloh screamed, then stopped. Her face went blank. Slowly, she said, we had chocolate cake. My stomach dropped. No, Shiloh looked at me. Dad, remember? Ruthie put frosting on the dog. We never owned a dog. Then Maya laughed. She always did that. I looked at Annie. She looked relieved. It was spreading, not physically, through agreement. Every new memory made Ruthie more stable. The house began changing around us. A framed photograph appeared on the hallway wall. 3 girls, Shiloh, Ruthie, Maya. I stared. Another photo. Christmas. 3 stockings. A drawing taped to the refrigerator downstairs. Ruthie 2ND grade. The world was correcting itself around the new story. I ran to our bedroom, opened the closet. Clothes, 3 sets of school backpacks along the wall. A box labeled Ruthie Baby Clothes. I almost vomited. Annie followed. See? No, she belongs. No, you're the only one fighting it. That should tell you something. Her face hardened. If you keep rejecting her, you might break it. Good. What happens to her? She isn't real. She's standing in our hallway. She's using us. Annie slapped me. Hard. She is our daughter. Then she covered her mouth. I had never seen her look so horrified by herself. Behind her, Ruthie stood. Watching, Mom? Annie turned. Ruthie opened her arms. Annie hugged her. I watched my wife choose. That mattered. I could feel it, like pressure changing. The house settled. Somewhere, a picture frame clicked into place. I suddenly remembered Ruthie's first day of kindergarten. No, I fought it. Red backpack. No, Annie crying in the parking lot. No, Ruthie waving. No, those memories felt exactly like real memories. That was the horror. Not that they looked fake. That they felt loved. I stumbled into the bathroom, looked in the mirror, my face. Behind me, Ruthie, how many daughters do you have? I said nothing. She stepped closer. How many? 2, the mirror flickered. For 1 second, my reflection had no eyes. Ruthie whispered. 3. No, 3, the room changed. 3 toothbrushes in the holder. Then 2, then 3. Reality hesitating. Ruthie began crying. Real child crying. Why don't you want me? I shut my eyes. I wanted you. Then let me stay. You're not her. How do you know? I opened my eyes. She was right behind me. What would make me her? I had no answer. Nah? Memory? Love? History? If the world changed completely, if every photograph and every person remembered her, how would I prove she had ever been absent? Ruthie smiled. You can't. I pushed past her. Downstairs, sunrise beginning. The acid was fading. That terrified me even more. This wasn't ending. The changes remained. 3 lunchboxes, 3 pairs of shoes near the door, 3 names on the family calendar. Annie came down, holding Ruthie's hand. Maya and Shiloh followed. Both looked sleepy. Normal, Shiloh yawned. Dad, why are you acting weird? I stared at her. How many sisters do you have? She frowned. 2, Maya said, obviously. Annie looked at me. Victory, I backed away. No, Ruthie smiled. Dad needs rest. Annie nodded. You had a bad trip. That was the explanation. Perfect, convenient, I had taken acid. Hallucinated a life without my middle daughter. Grief fantasy. Psychological episode. Anything I said afterward would sound insane. I went to my phone. Opened photos. Years of Ruthie. Videos, birthdays, vacations, school concerts. I opened one. Ruthie at age 5 dancing in the kitchen. I heard my own voice behind the camera laughing. Real, or now real. Then I searched messages. Pediatrician appointments. Teacher emails. Text to Annie. Ruthie has fever. Pick up Ruthie at 3. Ruthie lost another tooth. A whole digital history generated overnight. I searched medical records. My hands shook. There, pregnancy, second daughter Ruth Evelyn. Born healthy. No fetal anomaly, no termination, no loss. The hospital nightmare was gone. I searched my email for the doctor's name I remembered. Nothing. I searched anatomy, ultrasound. Nothing. No evidence. Only memory. Mine. Just mine. Annie stood behind me. You can let it go. I looked at her. What did you trade? Her face changed. What? There has to be a cost. No. There's always a cost. She looked toward the girls. Ruthie watched from the table. I whispered, what did those people tell you? Annie's eyes filled. They said manifestation requires displacement. There. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Annie, one history replaces another. What gets displaced? I don't know. You knew. I thought it meant memories. Whose? She looked toward Maya. My blood froze. No, I didn't choose. What happened? Nothing, Annie. Ruthie spoke from the table. Maya wasn't supposed to happen. The room went silent. I stared. What? Ruthie swung her legs beneath the chair. If I lived, Mom never needed another baby. Maya looked confused. Annie began sobbing. No, Ruthie smiled gently. 3 daughters still. I grabbed Maya. She cried out. What are you doing? I looked at her face. My youngest. My 6-year-old. But suddenly her features seemed unstable. I remembered pregnancy. Then didn't. Hospital, birth, first steps. Then another timeline pressed over it. No Maya. Family complete with Shiloh and Ruthie. Annie never pregnant again. Maya's photographs flickered in my phone. Some disappeared. No, I held her tighter. Dad, you're hurting me. I remember you. Ruthie watched. Maya's face sharpened. Dad, I remember you. Annie whispered, open heart. I understood. Receptive, not just to Ruthie, to whichever reality won. Manifest created. Open heart selected. I was the balancing mechanism, the witness, the person who would accept one version and make it stable. Annie hadn't been able to do it alone. She needed someone who remembered both. I looked at Ruthie. Then Maya. One impossible girl, one real girl being erased, except both were now real enough to be afraid. Ruthie's smile disappeared. She knew what I was thinking. Don't. I stared at her. You know, I want to stay. Maya clung to me. Dad? Annie collapsed into a chair. I didn't know. Yes, you did. I didn't know it would be Maya. You knew something would move. I thought history would rearrange safely. There's no safe way to replace a dead child. Ruthie shouted, I'm not dead. The room shook. Picture frames fell. For 1 second, the house changed completely. Different paint, different couch. Then snapped back. Ruthie was crying. Not monster crying. Child crying. I don't want to die. That destroyed me. Because whatever she was, she believed herself. Maybe she was truly a version of Ruthie from another possible life. Maybe Annie hadn't created a copy. Maybe she had pulled a real child across from a world where Ruthie lived. And in doing so, pushed Maya toward a world where she didn't. No villain, just arithmetic. 3 daughters could not fit into a history built for 2 births. I sat on the floor holding Maya. Ruthie approached. Dad. I looked at her. She whispered, please. I remembered holding her after nightmares, fake memories, real feelings. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike. I remembered losing her pregnancy. Both. I loved her. That was the trap. The manifestation didn't need me to believe she was real. It needed me to love her enough that choosing became impossible. Morning fully arrived. The candles burned low, the drugs faded. Nothing else did. Annie whispered, what do we do? I laughed once. Ugly. You're asking me? I'm sorry. Ruthie sat beside Maya. Maya looked at her. For a strange second, they held hands. Then Maya said, I remember you. Ruthie smiled. I remember you too. That shouldn't have been possible. Their histories were mutually exclusive, unless memory itself was building a third option. I looked at both girls. How? Ruthie frowned. I don't know. Maya said, we share a room. No, you don't. They both looked at me. Then upstairs, something thumped. Everyone froze. Shiloh was sitting at the table. Maya and Ruthie beside me. Annie across the room, all accounted for. Another thump. Girl's bedroom. Then footsteps. Small, a 4th child walked into the hallway. We could see only her legs from where we sat. Annie whispered, no. The child descended. 1 step. Another, she looked maybe 4. Dark hair. Our family's eyes. She stopped at the bottom. I stared. Who are you? She smiled. Annie started screaming because she recognized her. I did too, not immediately. Then memories arrived. Another pregnancy. Another loss, earlier than Ruthie. So early we had never named her. A chemical pregnancy, doctors called it. Barely 6 weeks. We mourned briefly, then moved on, or thought we did. The little girl smiled. Open heart. I understood. The door wasn't selective. Once opened, every absence became available. Every child who could have existed. Every life branch. Every empty place. Annie had not manifested Ruthie. She had opened the family. And I had made us receptive. Upstairs, another thump, then another. Multiple, small feet moving. Annie covered her ears. What did I do? Ruthie began crying. Maya screamed. Shiloh ran toward me. The hallway filled with children. Some older, some younger. Boys, girls' faces made from combinations of ours. Possible pregnancies. Possible miscarriages. Children never conceived. Children from choices we never made. Lives that existed only as probability. All walking toward us. All calling, Mom. Dad, the house changed around them. Bedrooms expanding. Photographs multiplying. Memories pushing into my skull. Birthdays, names, favorite foods, illnesses, school plays. Hundreds of years of family life compressed into seconds. I screamed. Stop. Everything froze. Children stared. I understood the last part. Open heart. Receptive, manifest, empowerment. But neither was the real mechanism. Attention was. Recognition, every time I looked at one and allowed a memory to form, the child gained weight. History, reality, I shut my eyes. Annie, she was sobbing. Close your eyes. What? Don't look at them. The children began crying. Dad, Mom, please, I covered my ears. Don't listen. Annie screamed, I can't. You have to. One little voice, Mommy, I'm scared. Annie made a terrible sound. Then silence. I opened one eye. She was hugging a little boy. I had never seen him before. Instantly, I knew his name. Caleb, no, I closed my eye. Annie, I'm sorry. The house groaned, more rooms forming, more lives. I crawled toward her with my eyes closed, found her arm, let go. I can't. That isn't our son. He is now. No. How do you know? The same question. No answer. Then Ruthie's voice, close, Dad, I refused. You wanted me. Tears ran down my face. Yes. Then why are you doing this? Because wanting isn't the same as having. She was quiet. Then, I don't want to disappear. I know. I'm scared. I know. Does that make me real? That nearly broke me. Maybe fear was enough. Maybe consciousness was enough. Maybe she was real now, even if she hadn't been before. But reality built by erasing someone else wasn't something I could accept. I whispered, I'm sorry. Then I forced myself to remember the hospital. Not the false birthday parties, not the bicycle. The ultrasound, the doctor, Annie crying, the empty nursery, the grief. I said aloud, Ruthie died. The room shook. Children screamed. Annie yelled, stop. Ruthie died. A hand grabbed my face. Small fingers. Strong, I kept my eyes closed. She was loved. The grip tightened. She existed. Something cracked in the wall. But she did not live to 8. The hand released. One child vanished from the soundscape, then another. I continued. Maya was born. The house shifted. Shiloh was born. More movement. Ruthie died before she was born. Annie screamed. I repeated it, not cruelly, as truth. A truth I hated. A truth I would have changed if given any power on earth. But truth. The voices faded, one by one. Finally, only one remained. Ruthie, crying, I opened my eyes. She stood in front of me. Everything else normal. 3 original people. Shiloh, Maya, Annie, and Ruthie. Just Ruthie. She looked at me. Please. I couldn't speak. Annie crawled toward her. I grabbed Annie's wrist. No, Ruthie's outline flickered. She looked younger. Older, baby, 8, then the ultrasound image, then 8 again. Dad, I whispered, I love you. Her face crumpled. Then let me stay. I can't. Why? Because I don't know what you have to replace. Ruthie looked toward Maya, then back. She knew I can share. No, I can. Her body flickered. For 1 second, 2 girls occupied the same space, Ruthie and Maya. Overlapping, then separate. I can fit. No child should have to fit into someone else's life. She started fading. Annie screamed. Please. Ruthie looked at her mother. Mom? Annie reached. I held her. Ruthie's fingers became translucent. She looked at me one last time. What if I was real? I answered the only way I could. Then I'm sorry twice. She disappeared. No flash, no sound. Gone, the house settled. Photographs changed. 3 became 2. Extra shoes vanished. Backpacks, toothbrushes, memories the false years tore out of my head so quickly I almost fainted. But not all of them. I still remember Ruthie learning to ride a bike. I remember a birthday party that never happened. I remember carrying her asleep from the car at age 7. I remember her favorite cereal. I remember the sound of her laugh. Those memories stayed. That may be the worst part. Annie remembers them too. We both know they didn't happen. We also, both, miss them. The girls remember almost nothing. Shiloh once asked why she dreamed about having another sister. Maya drew 3 girls holding hands a week later. We never told them. The acid wore off completely by afternoon. Annie and I barely spoke. She deleted the forum. Or tried. The site no longer existed. Bora denied knowing anything about Manifest. She said the retreat had never involved psychedelics. Apparently, Annie had remembered that wrong. Another inserted story. Maybe the first opening had happened earlier than we thought. We don't know. That was 3 months ago. We haven't taken anything since. We barely drink. Every August 15th, we light one candle for Ruthie. Not to summon her, not to manifest. Just remember, the real Ruthie. The baby we lost. Not the 8-year-old girl who hugged too hard. There's one thing I haven't told Annie. I found one of the Pokemon squares last week. Charizard. Open heart. It was inside my wallet. I know I took it that night. I watched the paper dissolve on my tongue. Yet there it was. Perfect, on the back. Where there had been nothing before, someone had written 3 words in tiny pencil. You were receptive. I burned it. Yesterday, another appeared in the pantry tin. Different Pokemon. A little pink one I didn't recognize. Underneath it, keep heart closed. That frightened me. Not because it sounded threatening. Because it sounded like advice. Tonight is August 15th again. A year later. Annie is asleep beside me. Shiloh and Maya are upstairs. I checked. 2 girls. Only 2. I stood in their doorway for a long time. Then I noticed something at the foot of the bed. A small bump beneath the blanket. A few inches tall. Exactly like that first night. I told myself it was Maya's foot. Then the bump moved. Maya didn't. I didn't step closer. I didn't look. I closed the door. Maybe that was cowardly. Maybe it was smart. Because I finally understand something Annie never did. Grief doesn't create an empty room that needs to be filled. It creates a door. Most of the time, the door stays shut. You remember. You hurt. You move forward. But if someone offers you a way to open it, even for one night, even out of love, even because you would give anything to see the person on the other side, you need to understand that the thing waiting there may know exactly who you want it to be. And if you open your heart wide enough, eventually you stop caring about the difference. A few minutes ago, I heard a child walk into the hallway. One set of footsteps. Slow, unsteady, like someone learning how to use legs. They stopped outside our bedroom. I haven't woken Annie. I don't think I will. The doorknob moved once. Then a little girl whispered, "Dad?" I kept my eyes closed. She waited. Then I remembered how to fit. That is why I'm writing this instead of answering. Because I still remember her. I still love a girl who never lived. And somewhere on the other side of this door, something knows that love is the easiest memory to make real. Look, if you're still watching, you already know what this channel is. No jump scares, no fake drama, just real stories about real people who survive things most of us can't even imagine. And that's scarier than any movie could ever be. If you want more of this raw, unfiltered truth, told the way it deserves to be told, subscribe to Lacuna Noir. We're not here to waste your time. We're here to tell the stories that actually matter. Thanks for listening. Now go get some sleep, if you can.